1. The future of U.S. Department of Education, dismantling or reforming. 3. Trump's tax bill, how it will reshape public schools and impact millions of kids. 4. 175+ Democrats support NAACP suit against dismantling Department of Education. 5. Why the U.S. Department of Education should be abolished. 1. The future of U.S. Department of Education, dismantling or reforming. Hold on to your textbooks. The explosive debate about eliminating the U.S. Department of Education has suddenly gone quiet, and the reasons behind this silence reveal deep divisions about America's educational future. While President Trump's March executive order aimed to fundamentally restructure the agency, as detailed here, https://www.whitehouse.gov/presidential-actions/2025/03/improving-education-outcomes-by-empowering-parents-and-communities. Recent weeks show the department actively pursuing initiatives like combating gender ideology in curricula and prioritizing Title IX investigations. Yet, as Arizona education officials confirm, there's been very little updated news about the dismantling effort itself, creating an odd limbo where the agency simultaneously operates while its existence hangs in the balance. Here's where the battle lines form. Republicans argue the department represents wasteful federal overreach, insisting education decisions belong with states and local schools. This stance resonates powerfully with conservative parents demanding greater control over their children's learning. But here's what critics fear most: dismantling could unleash catastrophic ripple effects. Research professor Leslie Babinski, Sanford School of Public Policy, Duke University, warns, we're looking at 7.4 million students with disabilities whose funding protections under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act hang in the balance. Plus, 9.8 million rural students rely on federal support in areas with weak local tax bases. She emphasizes this isn't some abstract policy debate. If it doesn't impact your family directly, you'll know someone affected. Now, here's the controversial twist at the heart of this debate. While supporters frame restructuring as returning power to states, Babinski counters that federal funding only constitutes about 10% of public school budgets. The real clash centers on targeted programs for vulnerable groups. Block grants, flexible federal funds given to states for broad use, sound appealing. But Babinski poses the uncomfortable question. Will states prioritize disadvantaged students if they control all the dollars? This exposes the core tension. Is federal oversight essential for equity, or does it stifle local innovation? Education Secretary Linda McMahon attempted to calm fears back in April, stating dismantling wouldn't defund critical programs since Congress controls the money. Source: https://www.google.com/search?Q=Linda plus McMahon plus on plus dismantling plus ed. But Arizona's State Superintendent Tom Horne delivers a scathing rebuttal, calling the department hopelessly ineffective. He points to plunging national test scores over decades as proof of its failure, arguing operational funds should go directly to classrooms. Horne drops this bombshell. White House reports indicate over half the department's staff rarely show up to work, a waste of taxpayer dollars and poor example to teachers and students. Sources: https://www.communications/horn-says-federal-education-funding-without-us-department-education. The silence from the White House and Education Department on whether dismantling remains a priority speaks volumes. So where do you stand? Is eliminating this agency a crucial step toward educational freedom and efficiency, or a dangerous gamble with America's most vulnerable students? Does local control empower parents or risk abandoning equity? The classroom doors are open for your debate. Share your passionate perspectives below. 3. Trump's tax bill, how it will reshape public schools and impact millions of kids. The Trump administration's Big Beautiful Bill is a game changer, but not in the way many would hope. It's a controversial piece of legislation that has the potential to significantly impact the lives of millions of American children, particularly those from low-income families. But how? And why is it so divisive? The bill's impact on public education asterisk. This bill, a sweeping tax and domestic policy reform, has been touted as a realignment of federal priorities. However, it's the deep cuts to healthcare and nutrition programs that have educators and policy analysts concerned. The bill slashes funding for Medicaid, a vital source of support for school health services, and makes changes to the SNAP program, which could leave many children without access to free school meals. These cuts are expected to have a domino effect, leading to a reduction in school health staff, such as nurses and counselors, and an increase in food insecurity among students. But here's where it gets controversial. The bill also includes a new tax credit scholarship program, promoting private school education. This has sparked debates about the role of the government in education and the potential for further inequality in the education system. While supporters argue it empowers parents, critics worry about the future of public schools and the children who rely on them. Medicaid cuts. A health crisis in schools? Medicaid, a federal program for low-income individuals, is a lifeline for schools, funding essential health services. The bill's major cuts to Medicaid could force schools to make difficult decisions, potentially leading to staff layoffs and reduced health services. This is especially critical in rural areas, where schools serve a higher proportion of Medicaid-enrolled children. SNAP changes. Hunger in the classroom? The bill's adjustments to SNAP eligibility criteria may result in a significant number of families losing access to this vital food assistance program. This could directly impact school meal programs, as children from SNAP households are automatically eligible for free meals. Schools might face a decline in meal participation and federal reimbursements, and advocacy groups warn of a rise in classroom hunger, especially in low-income areas. Immigration enforcement. A climate of fear? The bill's substantial funding increase for immigration enforcement, including raids and deportations, is expected to have a chilling effect on school attendance, particularly in immigrant communities. Research has already shown that immigration raids can lead to higher absenteeism, especially among younger children, creating a climate of fear and instability. Private school vouchers. A step forward or back? The introduction of a tax credit scholarship program for private school tuition is a contentious issue. While some see it as a way to provide more options for parents, others argue it could drain resources from public schools and exacerbate existing educational inequalities. The program's cost is also a concern, with no cap on tax credit payouts, leaving the financial implications unclear. Pell Grants. A silver lining? The bill's approval of workforce Pell Grants is a positive step, allowing low-income students to access short-term job training programs from 2026. However, the updated child tax credit has been criticized for excluding many low-income families, offering fewer benefits than previous pandemic-era expansions. This bill, with its far-reaching implications, raises important questions about the future of public education and the role of the government in supporting vulnerable children. Is it a necessary reform or a step backwards? What are the potential long-term consequences for American children? The answers to these questions are sure to spark debate, and we invite you to share your thoughts and opinions in the comments. 4. 175 plus Democrats support NAACP suit against dismantling Department of Education. Here's the shocking truth about how a single executive order could reshape education in America, and why over 175 Democratic lawmakers are fighting back. The Trump administration's plan to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education has ignited a fierce legal battle, with Democrats arguing that the president doesn't have the power to unilaterally erase a federal agency created by Congress. But here's where it gets controversial. The legal team leading this charge isn't just defending a bureaucracy. It's standing up for a core American principle. Let's break it down. The fight began when more than 175 Democratic members of Congress submitted a 15-page legal brief opposing the administration's overhaul of the Department of Education. At the heart of their argument is a simple but powerful claim. The president can't dissolve a federal agency without Congress's approval. The law couldn't be clearer. The president doesn't have the authority to abolish the Department of Education, Senator Elizabeth Warren emphasized, adding, "Donald Trump isn't a king, and he can't decide who gets access to education. This isn't just a political showdown. it's a constitutional debate. The lawmakers, led by Warren, Judiciary Committee member Jamie Raskin, and Education Committee Chair Bobby Scott, argue that the Department of Education was created by law and can only be restructured through legislation. They're backing the NAACP's lawsuit, which claims the administration's actions, like cutting nearly half the agency's staff and ending grant programs, violate the separation of powers. The NAACP and other groups are now asking a Maryland court to block these changes, calling them a threat to students, educators, and schools. But this isn't the first time the administration has faced pushback. In March, a federal judge temporarily halted the plan, and the Supreme Court is set to weigh in on a separate case involving the firing of 2,000 employees. Critics, like Representative Joe Negus, warn that shutting down the department would strip vital support from millions of students and teachers. Schools are the bedrock of this nation, said Representative Frederica Wilson, a former principal and education advocate. Dismantling the Department of Education would send shockwaves through our communities. The legal team's brief also highlights a key point. Congress, not the president, holds the power to reorganize the executive branch. No president can dismantle a federal agency created by law, Raskin stressed, calling the Department of Education an essential democratic safeguard. Meanwhile, Education Secretary Linda McMahon insists the agency's critical functions, like supporting students with disabilities, can be transferred to other departments. This isn't just about politics. It's about who controls the rules that shape education in America. Warren's Save Our Schools campaign, launched after Trump's executive order, frames the issue as a battle between public good and private interests. Taking away federal support for schools so billionaires get richer is just plain ugly, she said. But here's the question. Do you think the president should have the power to dissolve federal agencies? Or is Congress the only body that can make such decisions? Share your thoughts. This fight isn't just about paperwork. It's about the future of education in America. 5. Why the U.S. Department of Education should be abolished. The U.S. Department of Education is a bureaucratic relic clinging to life, and it's time to pull the plug. For years, the department has lingered in a state of limbo, with the Trump administration attempting to dismantle it through executive actions while Democrats and teachers' unions fiercely resist. But beneath the political tug-of-war lies a critical question. Does this federal agency truly serve America's educational needs? Or is it an unconstitutional, inefficient relic of the past? The battle lines are clear. President Trump campaigned on abolishing the department, arguing it embodies wasteful federal overreach. Democrats, aligned with powerful teachers' unions, have vowed to block such moves. The Trump administration has gutted the department staff, shedding over 1,300 employees, and offloaded responsibilities. But courts have repeatedly intervened to reverse these actions. A recent Supreme Court ruling limiting nationwide injunctions may shift the legal landscape, but the department remains intact for now. So why should the Department of Education exist at all? The answer, proponents of abolition argue, is that it shouldn't. Education in the U.S. is overwhelmingly funded and managed at the local level. As the department itself admits, a mere 8% of K-12 funding comes from federal sources. Frederick Hess of the American Enterprise Institute bluntly calls the department for 1,000 bureaucrats writing rules, managing student loans, and generating paperwork, a body that doesn't educate a single child. Its core functions, from loan administration to grant programs, could easily be transferred to other agencies or devolved to states. Critics argue the department's very existence violates the Constitution, which grants no federal authority over education. The vast majority of its functions are unconstitutional, notes Thomas Berry of the Cato Institute, emphasizing that no enumerated power justifies its existence. Yet the department was born from political deal-making. Jimmy Carter created it in 1979 to fulfill a campaign promise to the National Education Association, NEA, which rewarded him with its first-ever presidential endorsement. Since then, teachers' unions have remained its staunch defenders, benefiting from the department's power to dictate policies and disperse funds that incentivize compliance with federal mandates. The department's influence is subtle but pervasive. By tying funding to adherence to federal rules, it undermines local autonomy. As Harvard's Brendan Pelsu explains, Washington uses funding mechanisms and the presidential bully pulpit to control what and how students learn, a level of control that benefits bureaucrats and unions at the expense of innovation. Abolishing the department won't be easy. Courts have blocked Trump's cuts, ruling that only Congress can legally dismantle it. Several Republican-sponsored bills aim to do just that. Senator Rand Paul and Representative Thomas Massie propose immediate termination, while others suggest redistributing its duties. But with Congress distracted by megabills like the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the department's fate hangs in limbo. The question remains, are Americans better off with a federal education department that dictates from D.C., or would decentralization spark true progress? As the Cato Institute's Neil McCluskey argues, power over education belongs with the people and states, not a bloated, unconstitutional bureaucracy. Will lawmakers finally act, or will the department continue to thrive on inertia? The decision could redefine America's approach to learning and its relationship with federal power. Asterisk, what's your take? Should the Department of Education be abolished, or does it play a vital role you believe is overlooked? Share your thoughts in the comments. Asterisk.